All right, welcome teachers and students. Thank you all for coming out to our virtual field trip today. Today we are going to be visiting our host farm at Goodale Farms out in Riverhead, New York. But before we begin, I'd just like to say that tonight's program is brought to you by Cornell Cooperative Extension of Nassau County with the support of the Cornell University New York Agriculture in the Classroom program, as well as some funding provided by the Department of Ag and Markets. Some housekeeping things before we start our webinar here. We are in a webinar format, which means that you all can see us. However, we cannot see or hear you. However, if you guys have any questions throughout the webinar, teachers, you are welcome to use our question and answer feature on the webinar to submit your questions. We will try to answer the questions throughout the webinar. However, we will have a question and answer period at the end. If you have any questions that are not answered through the webinar, you are welcome to send us an email at nassaucounty4h@cornell.edu. And Nicole Nash, our agriculture program educator, will be happy to answer some of those questions. We will also be following up with a survey from this webinar, as well as some additional resources so you guys can continue this activity amongst your classroom lessons there. Just another thing I'd like to point out, our educators are out at a farm today. They do have some limited cell phone and internet coverage there. So at any point, if the video starts getting choppy or if we can't hear them, we'll just take a minute to pause, let them reset, and we will continue on. So in case you're wondering where our host farm is today, here is a map of the United States, which I'm sure that you all are very familiar with. And if you look all the way here in New York State, you'll see a little icon there. Specifically, our farm is located at 250 Main Road out in Riverhead. We can see all the way out here on the east end of Long Island where this little icon is. That is where our host farm is. Now, most of us are all the way on the left side of the screen here out in Nassau County, but we can see that there are still some farms that are relatively close to us. So if anyone would ever like to visit, the farm is open all the time and welcome to visitors. So now I will turn it over to our educators over at the farm, and they will begin.
Hi guys, I'm Nicole Nash. I am one of the 4-H educators, and today we are here with Mr. Hal Goodale, the farmer of Goodale Farms. We are going to get to show you guys how he takes care of his animals, some of the milking process we're going to get to go through. We're going to start off with a cow. We're going to come back out here. We're going to share some of his wonderful products with you guys, and then we're going to go back in there. We're going to see some goats being milked as well. We also have the opportunity to go behind the scenes and get to see some of how these cheese products are made. So again, this is Mr. Hal Goodale. Let's venture off into the milking room and get started. So Hal, do you want to walk us through the process of what your farmhand is going to be doing right now?
Before you start speaking, could we just make sure that all of our microphones are unmuted so we can hear you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear Nicole.
Oh, check.
I think Hal.
Unmute Hal. I think you muted Hal by mistake.
Hal, if you could just take a look at your phone real quick. You may have to unmute from the Zoom.
So I guess while they're taking care of that, I can go through some of the process I'll explain to you guys. So what typically happens first when you bring a cow in here?
The cows come in and they're given a little bit of feed to get them to come in, and then we'll clean and sanitize their udder. So I already want to let's do the clean.
So, and what type of cow is this?
This is a Jersey cow. We have a mix of cows on our farm. We have some of the typical cows that you see, the black and white ones, which are Holsteins. This is a Jersey. They're a little smaller. They give a little bit less milk, but they give a higher butter fat in milk, which is good for cheese production and the things we do.
And how old is about this cow?
This cow is about 7 years old.
Okay.
So we clean everything real good and strip a little milk out before we hook it up to the automatic milker.
And then how long does the entire process take?
Depending on the cow, this cow, probably 5 to 7 minutes. Some of the Holsteins that give a little bit more milk can be more on the 10 to 15 minute.
And how many gallons of milk per milking do they produce?
The Jerseys will give somewhere around 3 to 4 gallons per milking. So that would be, say, 3 to 4 in the morning and 3 to 4 in the evening. Some of the Holsteins give more in the lines of 5 to 6 per milking.
And now, what would you call this machine right now?
This is not automated milking like in a big dairy, but it's a vacuum system, and they're called bucket milking. So instead of, in the old days, you'd do it by hand into a bucket. Now there's a vacuum pump that creates suction that gets hooked up, and then the milk comes right into the bucket. And then when it's done, I mean, the milk will stop. But
So how many cows do you have on your property, on your farm?
Dairy cows, milking cows, we have about 14. And then we have probably 8 young cows that are, getting raised to become dairy cows, and then probably another 15 beef cows.
So on average, how many gallons of milk would you say that your cows are producing a day?
We get somewhere between 70 and 80 gallons a day.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's about
Where
what you would see in the grocery store in the refrigerator. That section is,
Yeah,
you know,
and we're not like a big dairy where we're trying to get where we milk 3 times a day, or we're more concerned with the quality of the milk, and we don't need to get every ounce of what we're doing.
Could we talk a little bit about what you feed them?
Yeah, they get a mixture of like rye, wheat, and corn all ground together.
And is this grown on your farm, or do you source?
Yes.
So everything you feed them is grown here?
Yes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask about this beautiful Jersey cow right now? No? Okay, then let's venture back outside. We can go over some of the cheese products that Hal makes here on his farm with some of the milk. So you said about 80 gallons a day. How much of that milk do you reserve for cheese making?
Probably close to half goes to cheese making. And during much of the year, a lot of it will be used to feed babies, whether it's baby goats or baby cows have to be fed milk for a good 4 or 5 months.
So walk us through some of the products that you offer here on your farm stand.
All right, so when the milk leaves here, you'll see in a little while it goes into the processing plant, and we pasteurize it. Everything is vat pasteurized, which is a low temperature pasteurization. And some of it will go into a bulk tank to be cooled, and we bottle the milk in glass bottles. We bottle cow milk and goat milk, and then approximately 50% of the cow or goat milk will also go into cheese production. So we make soft cheeses, we make some semi-soft cheeses, we do yogurts, a Feta cheese, and that process you'll see a little bit later. But each type of cheese has a different process. Some is just drained and packaged. Other has to be pressed and aged a little bit. And then on our farm we also do we raise produce, we can stuff. The idea of the farm was to kind of step back to the way things were maybe 50 years ago on a small scale farm that raised everything for their family or community. So we try to do the same thing. We can peaches in season. We grow produce. We make sauerkraut. We have meats from the pigs get fed the whey from the dairy production. The cows are on pasture. Chickens again get fed the whey from the cheese production and scraps. And we try to utilize everything, whether it's buttermilk or butter, any vegetables that don't get delivered to our members to eat will get fed to the animals. So we try to keep everything.
So one thing I did want you to explain to them is if you could explain what it means for something to be pasteurized, right? I'm sure that you guys have picked up on some of that in the grocery store.
Yep.
Yeah, what does it mean for something to be pasteurized?
Right, when the milk comes out of the animal, whether it's a cow or goat, it's considered basically raw. You have raw milk, which you can drink raw milk, but pasteurization is a heating process of the milk, which kills any bad bacterias like salmonella or anything that could possibly get in your milk. So it makes it basically kills bacteria. So that low temperature pasteurization is we heat the milk to 145 for 30 minutes, and then we can cool it, and that's considered that. A lot of what you see in a store, most of what you see in a store is ultra pasteurized, where they do it at like 180, 200 degrees for 30 seconds. And it kills a lot more. The vat pasteurization leaves a lot of the enzymes and these types of things alive that are good for you. Again, our milk we don't put anything in our milk or take anything out of our milk. So we only have whole milk. We don't homogenize. So if you were to buy our milk, you would see a cream line, and it won't, sometimes it won't reintroduce, so you get little flecks in your milk, but it's cream. Where in the store they pasteurize and homogenize, so their homogenization emulsifies the cream into the milk so that you
right. So you have that silky smooth consistency all the way through. Okay, guys. So you want to take a trip back into the okay.
You have a few questions.
Oh yeah, that's great. No, awesome,
here.
Guys. Yeah, ask away.
We have a lot of great questions that are coming in right now. We will ask the questions that you can answer right now. Some of the questions that were submitted, I think we'll discuss later on in the virtual tour, so we'll hold off on those.
Sure.
But we have a question right here that asked, does it hurt the cow when it's being milked?
No, actually it's kind of a relief. If you didn't milk it, it'd build up pressure. So they actually, the 2 times a day that they come in, normally they come in at 5 in the morning and 5 at night. They're actually waiting at the gate and anxious to come in.
So it's something naturally that happens for these ladies. They look forward to it. Like you saw, she was very excited to walk into that parlor and be fed, and for the milking process to take place. Okay, next question.
All right, thank you guys. This is a 2-part question here. So how much food does the cow eat in one day? And also, what types of food does the cows eat?
So Hal talked a little bit about that. He said majority or almost all the food that they're eating is produced here on his farm.
Right. And they spend the whole day in the pasture in season, so they're really eating all day. And then in the wintertime, we give them hay because the pastures die off. So we make hay during the summer season. And then grain is more as a treat to bring them in. We don't really give it to them based on a nutritional basis or anything. It's more as a treat. So they're getting the nutrition from the quality of the hay and the silage that we make in the summer season. So a cow that will eat probably, I forget the ratio, but I believe it's 50 to 80 pounds a day.
That's a lot. That's probably about what some of you guys weigh at school. Next question.
I think we answered this question a little bit when we talked about pasteurization, but I think we missed a few of the steps before we started milking the cow. So this question here is, how do they clean the cow's milk?
Okay, so when the cow comes in, first thing we do is we wash the udder, just because maybe she's laying in the field and laying in dirt, and we get that all off. And then we strip by hand 2 or 3 squirts before we hook her up to the machine. So that would be any milk that's been sitting in there since being milked last night, or if anything got up in there, we're pulling that out. And then once it comes out of into the bucket and we transfer it into a bulk tank, we filter it again in case any hair or dust particles, anything like got into it. And then it would go with the pasteurization.
All
Okay,
right.
does that
thank
help
you.
answer some of your questions? Okay.
I think we can move on to the next part.
Yeah.
Goats in it.
So I don't know if you guys can see in the background, this bunch of goats right now, like they're anxiously waiting to go and get milked right now. So it looks like there's about 30 or 40 of them. So this is something, again, Hal said, takes place at least 2 times a day. This is natural for them. You can see them walking in on the ramp a little bit. So let's take a walk inside, and you can see when we get in there that they're already kind of being treated to some snacks right now. Right, so they're all hooked up with some food. I don't hear anything.
While you guys are waiting there was a question here. How old was the cow that was being milked?
I believe she's 7.
So she's 7 years old. And on average, how long do cows live for?
That's a trick question. That would depend on where they're from. The cows here will milk. I've got a couple that went to 10, 12 years, and then they just kind of live out their lives in the pasture. On a standard big time dairy, they're usually moved on by the time they're 7.
All right, so you guys can see here, they're wiping down the udders, they're cleaning some of that dirt that might be on there. Can anybody notice any difference between the goat's udders and the cow's udders? Maybe you guys picked up on that. Maybe Hal can explain some of that. Is there any great difference between them?
I mean, the principle's all the same, except for, the cow obviously is a larger animal, and they have 4 teats, where a goat or mammary glands, the goat has 2. So, I mean, again, it's a smaller animal. A good goat will give you 1 gallon to 2 gallons of milk a day.
And then again, is about half of that being used for cheese making?
Probably the goat's probably a little bit more for cheese than fluid milk, as we don't have it. The demand for fluid goat milk's a little bit less than cow.
Right, and some of the classrooms that are viewing, they actually, I meet with them every week. And last week, one of our lessons was we actually got to try some goat's milk supplied from you. We tried your goat's milk, we tried your cow's milk, and some of them were actually pleasantly surprised as to how much they liked the goat's milk. At first they were a little bit afraid to try it, but all of them did. And, for the most part, I would say at least half of the class did enjoy it.
Yeah, it's actually, I tell a story once. When we first started, my daughters, who are seniors in high school now, were younger, and in elementary school, we did a taste test out front at the stand with fresh, cold cow milk and goat milk, and over half the people that tried it couldn't tell the difference.
Right, and goat's milk is actually easier for our bodies to digest, correct?
Yes, and actually more people in the world drink goat milk than they do cow milk.
So you guys can see here that the goats are being hooked up to a similar vacuum, that the milk is coming out and deposited into those tanks. About how long does this process take for the goats?
Not as long, and actually, I mean, today it probably won't be long, as they're coming into the end of the lactation, in that the goats have babies in the spring, February, March, and milk through the season. And now November, December, by the end of December, they're really dried up, because they should be 2 months pregnant and will be having babies in 3 months. So they're at the end now, so they're not giving that much milk.
So how many babies do you expect to see here in the springtime? Do you have an estimate?
Well, we've got about 120 goats, and they average 2 babies, so 240.
So this is something like if you guys wanted to take a drive out here and visit, you would be able to see almost 300 baby goats given the springtime.
Sure, you can even help feed them if you
Yeah,
want.
yeah, I know. I saw in the beginning, you guys have the opportunity to bottle feed the babies in the springtime. There was feed for sale. So, you know, and for those of you that are in class with me that are in session, you know, that had the goats and the cow's milk last week, you can have the opportunity to get to meet these guys in real life.
So we have some questions
Okay.
here about the
Yeah.
goats. So we see that there's goats that come in different colors. Some of them are different sizes. Could you speak about the differences in some of these goats?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different breeds of goats, just like cows. We mainly have the white goats, which are Sonnens, which would be similar to the black and white cow in that they give more milk, maybe a little less on the butter fat. But we also have some Nubians, which are darker and have long ears, and some La Manchas, which again have more color and actually have very tiny ears. They give a little higher butter fat. So we have a good mix. A few Alpines, as with the cows, we have a mix of all breeds pretty much.
So your cheeses are a combination of all of these varieties of goats.
Yeah, we mix all the milk together for the goats and the cows. It's just to try to get a blend of a certain
Consistency?
Yeah.
Okay, are there any more questions?
Yes,
Yeah?
there are. Where do
great.
the goats sleep at night? And what about in the winter time?
They've got housing in the back out in the field, and some huts. We have little white huts where they go. And in the wintertime, they huddle together. Really, they actually like the cold more than the heat. The same with the cows. You'll find a lot of times the cows can go into the shelter. It's at their choice, and a lot of times it'll be cold out or a snowstorm. And they'll be standing out in the field rather than go into the shelter. They enjoy it. They really want shelter when we get high winds and low temperature. Then they'll really seek the shelter. But just like a dog, they'll put on more hair in the wintertime, and I think they actually enjoy it because there's no flies.
Okay, great. Do we have any more before we go into the cheese room? Are you guys ready to see some cheese? Yeah?
Yeah, we do have some questions
Quite
here.
a few. Great, guys. Yeah, keep them coming.
What do the goats eat and how often are they fed?
Well, just like the cows, they get some grain when they come in to be milked, and then they have a constant supply of hay throughout the day. So they have hay in front of them all day, which we've been raising an alfalfa orchard grass mix for our hay, and that's in front of you. Anytime you go out there, there'll be some group of them at the hay bin eating.
Excellent.
Okay.
I
Another
think that's
question?
it for now.
Oh, really? Okay, great, guys. So let's walk over to the cheese room, and then we'll see where the milk is made into different cheese products. Okay, so the cheese room is actually right next door to Hal's milking parlor. So it's only a quick little walk. I guess after you.
You wanna?
Yeah, so guys, we're gonna switch over headsets now. This is Chrissy. She works here on the farm. She's one of the managers. So she's gonna talk a little bit more about the process of cheese making that they make here, because they do make quite a few different products here, as you saw on the table outside. So okay, I guess let's start with, what are these right here in the background?
Okay, so what you see here are the pasteurizers. This is what we do with the milk. We take the milk from the milking area, we bring it in, and then we'll heat it up. We're only heating it up to 145 degrees for 30 minutes. So it's not like your big companies that they're processing and pasteurizing and homogenizing. So do they know what homogenizing is?
We talked briefly about pasteurizing. We didn't go
Okay.
into too much more about homogenizing, but go ahead.
Yeah, homogenizing is when they heat it up even more. Then they can break it down into 1%, 2%, fat-free. But here, and then they can make cream, so like ice cream and butter. But here we're just pasteurizing up to 145 degrees. That way we can make cheese, yogurt. We can also put it into the cooling tank, which I'll show you after, to bottle our milk. So if you can maybe bring the camera in, you can see it's very hot. We're going to make some ricotta today, and we want to show you that. But there is some milk in there. That's cow milk. All right. So it's spinning around, heating up. We're killing off all that bad bacteria.
And about how many gallons of cow's milk is in here right now?
Well, right now it's about 15 gallons, but we can hold up to 100 gallons.
Okay.
All right.
So this is only about half full right now, right?
Not even, about a quarter.
Wow. Yeah, that's
so
a lot of
it shows you.
milk.
All right. So the other tank that we see here, this big stainless steel tank, we pasteurized some goat milk this morning. And so now what you're seeing in here, it's cooling down. All right. And then once it's cool enough, I'm going to put it in the bottling machine, which is this one right over here. Unfortunately, it's not set up. I wish we could set it up. But what we do is it runs through, it's all gravity fed, and we bottle our milk. And then that goes right to the store. So it's a very simple, easy, quick step that the milk is ready to go and to the stores, to your house, and also to make anything.
Right. And some of my classrooms that I worked with last week, they did get to see some of those glass bottles in their classroom. Yeah, so they got to try goat's milk and cow's milk last week.
That's great. Oh,
right.
Good.
So from that stage, I guess after it's pasteurized, we can talk a little bit about the cheese.
Different cheeses. So, ¿quieres hacer el ricotta ahora? Yo puedo hablar. Okay. All right. So what we do is she's going to get the ricotta, the milk ready to make ricotta. But while she's doing that, this is Queso Fresco, which is more of a Spanish quick cheese they put on tacos, quesadillas, and that. So we have that hanging out in the molds. And what it does is it's taking out the whey, which you see in here in this tank. So it's separating it. So you get your cheese.
How do you cause the separation between the curds and the whey?
So when we do that, I'll show you in this one, we put some goat milk in here today. And then what we add is the cultures, and we add some rennet.
Right. So this is something that my classrooms were doing this week. We're talking about cultures and rennet. Can you explain the reaction that these have, the difference between what is rennet and what is cultures?
The culture. So the culture is going to help with flavoring. It makes what kind of cheese you want to make. We do a very fast, creamy cheese, which only stays overnight. And you can see this is what it will look like when it comes out. And that's what's hanging right now. So we'll add this culture, which then gives it the creaminess, the taste that we're looking for. The rennet is what separates and helps separate the whey from the curds. All right. So once it's in there for a while, and I wish we had to show, but we cut it and it literally, you just scoop out the creaminess and you'll see a quick reaction like that when we make the ricotta. Does that help explain it?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, and I think they're ready to watch.
So we're doing the quick reaction with just vinegar. The acid in the vinegar is going to help separate that cream away from the milk. So it'll make the curds and the whey.
So the milk that she's churning right now, is that warmed or is that room temperature?
It is at 160 degrees, or it's at 170 degrees, excuse me. And as you can see, it's starting to turn.
Right. So this is something that you guys could recreate at home if you wanted to.
Yeah, definitely. Nice and easy. You can use any milk to do this. What's nice with our milk, because it's only heated to 145, we have more of the fat and the cream in it. So you'll get more curds. ¿Quieres separado eso también? Un ratito. So we're going to separate, we're going to show you a quick separation of the curds from the whey as well. So again, you can make some fresh ricotta at home with your parents. Maybe in the classroom. The problem is when you have to heat up that milk, you have to be careful.
Right. So I'm sure that ricotta is something that most of you guys are used to. It's in pasta. It's sometimes on pizza. So again, it's a pretty mild cheese. If you guys really enjoy mozzarella, this is something that you can very easily do at home.
¿Quieres solo las cuchillas or quieres otra? Okay. You can see how it's starting to curdle. Curdling is not a bad thing. It's actually what we call when it starts separating. And you can see inside there, that's the ricotta, and we just add salt, and it's simple as that. So it's really neat. There's so many things, so many different cheeses, varieties that we can make with just one milk, believe it or not. So with cow milk, with that one tank, I can make yogurt. I can make different cheeses, the ricotta. I can do aged cheesing. Aged cheeses. And then I can also do our quick soft cheese.
Great. So something that we talked about this week in some of our classes, but I'd like to share with the rest of you, is that all cheese, all dairy products starts with the same 4 basic ingredients. It starts with milk. So again, you just saw 2 different varieties of milk. You saw cow's milk and you saw goat's milk. Cultures, right, that Chrissy just showed you. Rennet is what causes that chemical reaction for the curds to separate from the whey. And then salt. So again, Chrissy kind of talked about aged cheese. This is something that we tasted this week, where salt really does play an impact on the aging process of cheese. So something that you guys are probably used to is cheddar cheese. That is a saltier cheese. It's aged a lot longer. We're showing you guys this one being strained and being made right now, it literally in minutes right before us. So this is considered a fresh cheese. It doesn't have a very long shelf life. There's still some of that water or whey intact. So that causes it to have a much shorter shelf life than something that's significantly more aged. So, and now we're watching her hang it up. They're going to tie it. And then how long do these guys sit here to drain? How long does it take?
The ricotta will be a lot faster, so we'll keep checking it, but it could take probably just even an hour. I'll wait till it cools down. Otherwise, the other cheese that you see here, that's an overnight process. So that takes about 12 hours.
Okay.
All right. And we just check to see just the moistness, like this is ready. We'll be able to take that. And you can see the one that I did take down, it looks like ice cream, doesn't it? But that is ready to be packaged. So we'll add different flavorings to it, like garlic, horseradish, cranberry walnuts, anything seasonal. So you can see that's what it's ready for.
So on average, from this part to when you're adding the flavors, how soon does it make its way out to the store?
So in about 2 days, I can have it out into up front in our fridge, and probably 3 days out to a store.
Okay.
By the time we're done packaging. Did you want to see some of the other aged ones here?
Yeah, let's take a look at some of the
Can
older
we
ones.
ask a few questions before we move on?
Oh yeah, go ahead, guys.
So there were some questions about the milk in the bulk tank. So with that milk there, how much cheese can that be made into?
Ooh, it all depends on the time of year and how much fat is in the milk as well. Usually what we can get, I'm trying to remember, maybe Hal can help us. Do you remember the average of how much cheese we can get out of a bulk tank or per gallons? How many gallons of milk to how much cheese? I'm trying to remember the... Did you hear that, Mike?
No, we can't hear him.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Okay. So the average is about a gallon of milk, you get a pound of cheese.
So that yield is about half, would you say? Much less.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So it takes quite a bit of milk to make one cheese.
So how much cheese
go ahead.
do you make in one day?
How much cheese do you make in one day?
Oh, so in about one day, we are usually average about 27 gallons of, we'll take 27 gallons of milk and make that into cheese. So that would be, 30 to 40 pounds. Yeah, that's about right. Yeah.
Do you ever put the cow milk and the goat milk together?
Yes, we do. Once in a while we do. And with our ricotta, we'll do that. It's a popular item, but also we've made some cheeses, that a soft, quick cheese with cow and goat.
Excellent. If we could just back up for a second, back over to the bulk tanks there. So how does the milk go from the milking parlor into the bulk tanks here?
So what we're doing is we're taking, when it's done being milked, we will then bring it into the pasteurizer. So we're bringing it in with canisters, milk canisters.
So you guys are not storing your milk, you're making it into cheese or bottling it right away. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
And there's another question here. What makes the cheese creamy?
The fat. So I have to say, more fat, the creamier it's going to be.
Right, and Hal talked about that briefly in the milking room when the goats and the cows were being milked, that different breeds of goats and cows produce creamier or not as creamy milk. So the combination of those milks really is what they're looking for to create their product. They're looking for a balance.
All right. And one more question before we move on here. When you were mixing the vinegar and the milk together and the milk turned clear, what happened there?
Where the milk turned clear. Oh, you mean when it separated?
Yeah.
So the vinegar, the acid of that vinegar, what it made it do is made the milk curdle. And that's what makes the curds.
So the clear
Is that what
part,
it was? That's
so the clear
whey
part
right there.
that's called the whey.
Correct.
All right. Thank you. I think we can move on now.
Okay. So some of our other aged cheeses, and it's a faster of the aged cheeses is our feta. So this is made with the goat milk. As you can see, don't mind me using my hands here. It's nice and ready. It's hard right now, but when it does start out, it does look like when it's in these molds. We'll take the curds, put it in the molds, and it sits in there for about 3 days. And we keep flipping it and salting it. Yeah.
So again, when you're making cheese, it's not something that you're just kind of setting aside. It's a daily process. How many times a day are you flipping these?
So about twice a day. Once in the morning we'll do it, and once in the evening. But we want to see how is it drying. You always have to look at that. Bacteria can grow.
And the flipping helps make sure, or to ensure that it's all the same, size. It's flat on one side, that's not uneven.
Correct. And also just drying process as well. You want this to turn out, you don't want it to turn out soggy on one side and then really hard and crusty on the other side. All right.
Okay, great. So now I saw that you put together this lovely spread. Do you want to walk us through some of the products that you guys, this is what you're making on a daily basis?
So it's a few of our items that we have. So we wanted to give you an idea. It's our yogurt. So this one, we add some strawberries to it. I think everybody loves strawberry yogurt. So I had to choose that one. Again, this is very fast. It takes us overnight to make the yogurt. It sits in a heating bath, and that's what makes it congeal. We also make cream cheeses. This is a chive cream cheese. Again, it's a different culture. We still use rennet, but use the same milk as well. Here's our ricotta. When it's all done, that's what it would look like when it comes out and we package it. We have some cow and goat cheeses, and this is the flavorings that we add to it. So it looks appetizing and it's very yummy.
Right, and these look beautiful to serve for the upcoming holiday season.
Oh yeah,
this is
definitely.
Something that you can just put out with some crackers.
Yep. Or everyday use. Everybody loves to have their yogurt. We also make butter once in a while. Again, that's a different process because you need to have the cream. So this is just cream and salt when we make that. And that would be a fun one to make, I think, with the kids.
Yeah, so that's actually coming up in one of our lessons.
Oh,
we're going to get to do butter in class.
Fun. Yeah. Cool. Some of our aged cheeses. This is the cheddar cheese, which everybody loves on their macaroni and cheese. We have some nice creamy blue. Some of the aged cheeses that we also add some fruit to it. So it's very appetizing.
So that looks like a traditional, like an English style Wednesday Dale,
right?
Yep. So can you talk about a little bit of the different areas of the world that you're kind of imitating with these cheeses?
Oh yeah, of course. A lot of them So this one would be more of your English, Irish, more of the savory and sweet that they love to have. We also do feta, which is which really comes from Greece. They've originally have mastered that, and they use a lot of sheep milk as well. So you'll see Queso Fresco that we make is more of a Spanish cheese, and you'll see they'll use that a lot. And a lot of just the quick cheeses, I think everybody makes that in their kitchen all over the world. So it's something they have extra milk. What do you do with it? Let's make it into cheese.
Right.
So,
and
this is cheese curds, which is big in Wisconsin. So that one we always add flavors. That's a pizza flavor, which I think everybody would love. And then we also make soap with our goat milk.
So what are the benefits of making soap out of goat's milk? Can you explain that to them?
The enzymes and the proteins in the goat milk definitely are better for you. They find that it makes it a creamier product. So when you're using it for your skin, it's actually healthier than all this processed chemicals. So this is actually a natural cleaning agent, but also moisturizer.
Great. And then I see some chocolate here on the board.
Of course. So everybody loves chocolate and everybody loves cheese. So have them both together. So we take our goat cheese and we mix some chocolate with it, some different flavorings. One is a Mexican, which we've added some little hot peppers to it and some cinnamon. And then we have our plain. So there's many, many things we can make with our milk products.
Right. Do we have any questions about what we're seeing on the board right now, guys?
Yes, we have a lot of questions here, and I'm going to try my best to combine some of them so we can answer as many as we can with our time here. But there's a question that was asking if the goat cheese and the cow cheese both taste the same.
No, there is a big difference. Not a very big difference. There's an aftertaste with the goat cheese. Same. Did everybody try the milk?
So in the classes that I'm currently working with, we did do milk tasting last week. So they did pick up, some said that the goat's milk was creamier. They noticed that it was whiter.
Yep.
They did say that it was a little bit saltier than the cow's milk as well.
Oh, okay. And they had that little aftertaste.
And they had that, yeah, kind
of
like
that's
that
what you'll get with the
cream.
cheese.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Yep. And that's what they'll get with the cheese.
So that's typically why if you see any chev or goat's milk in the grocery stores, guys, they're usually embellished in some kind of way to make them maybe a little bit sweeter to kind of counteract that tanginess, that sourness. So you can also recognize a goat's milk compared to some of the cow's milk by its vibrant, bright color. It's always going to be that beautiful, bright white. You guys can kind of see underneath the herbs and the fruits and nuts. It's always going to be that bone white, that paper white, versus a cow's milk, which is always going to be a slightly more yellowish tinge. Okay, so that's also a visual indicator of how you can identify the differences between goat's milk and cow's milk. Okay. More
so
questions?
we have some questions here about mold on cheeses.
Ooh, my favorite.
Both blue cheese and also some mold rinded cheeses.
Oh, yeah. So again, like Chrissy talked about earlier, there's different molds or cultures. So cultures is just a polite way of saying molds, guys. There's molds and cultures in all of our dairy products. You know, yogurt has cultures. So that's something that you ideally want to be looking for when you're purchasing yogurt in the store. You want to look for something that says live and active cultures. In cheeses, again, there's only two types of cultures that create that blue rind. You know, some of you might recognize that there's blue cheese and then there's blue cheese that are slightly greener. That's Penicillium roqueforti. So that penicillium, that culture creates kind of a greenish tinge to it, which this other culture tends to be more blue, and it's not as spicy as the other culture tends to be. And again, what is mold? Mold is a living organism. It's something that is looking to thrive inside the milk. So the cultures will actually start to build a rind on some of these cheeses because that's what their that's kind of just their defense mechanism. Again, we talked about pasteurization, we talked about harmful pathogens and, you know, bacteria getting in. The mold builds this rind to keep harmful bacteria growing inside of it. So again, it's different for all types of cheeses, but something on a blue cheese or a bloomy cheese, like a brie cheese that you guys might be familiar with, there's only 3 types of cultures that create that bloomy rind as well.
Right. And when we're talking about mold, we have, I think, 2 different terms here. We have mold, which is the fungus that grows in some of the cheeses there. And then we also have mold, which is the container that makes the cheese into specific shapes there.
Okay.
A question here is, when the cheeses are placed into those molds, why do they retain their shapes? You know, what happens when they're in the mold that they come out and they're able to stand upright?
So when we are putting the curds and the whey in together, so you'll see there's little holes inside there. So what's happening is the whey is coming out and the curd is staying behind. And then as the temperature goes down, then you'll see that's when it starts to. And here, I'll show you an example of this one.
So once all that excess liquid is removed,
correct,
it's becoming more of a solid form.
Correct. Yep. And then with temperature too, that will help congeal it.
All right. One last question here. How many different types of cheeses do you make?
Oh, geez. How many different types? I think we're up to, let's see. Oh, I have to say easily a dozen.
And you had mentioned that some of your cheeses, they're fresh cheeses, so they're ready to eat almost immediately after you make them. But the cheeses that you have to age, how long do they typically age for?
We can have aged cheese from 3 days all the way up to years. We have some that can sit for 4 years. Some are 2 years. So it all depends what kind of cheese we're trying to make.
Right. Excellent.
Salt plays a big,
salt plays a big,
salt plays a really
temperature,
big,
humidity, everything. Yep.
So that's not something that you're just kind of like setting off to the side. You're taking care of that as well on a regular basis.
Correct. Yep. Flipping, checking it always. Bacteria, good bacteria, bad bacteria, molds.
One more question here. What gives the cheeses different colors?
A lot of it's fat as well. So you can see sometimes in our ricotta, you'll see the difference where the cow milk has more fat in it. You'll see that has an orangey tinge, and you'll see that with all the cheddar and also the other cow milks.
All right, great. I think we're ready to move on.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. I guess we can, yeah. So let's take a walk back outside.
So as we get to the
as well, guys, that you know, Hal lives right here. His you know, he lives right on the property. So this is something that, you know, he's doing every single day. He's waking up and taking care of these animals. He's here all the time to ensure that they're being well taken care of. You know, he lives within steps of the milking parlor and the cheese making room.
So there was a question about when we were milking the animals. How come the goats were up on a platform?
Just to make it easier for the person milking, so that everything is at hand level. Otherwise, you'd be down on your knees.
Okay.
And where did all these animals come from?
He's back there.
Well, we acquired a few in the beginning from local sources, and then they multiply quick. I mean, if you have 12 and then you breed them, you'll have, you can double pretty much every year. So we started with 2 cows and 4 goats, and now we're 20 plus cows and 120 plus goats.
And how long has your farm been around? Did you guys always make both milk and cheeses?
Well, this part of the farm, the dairy part, I started about 5 years ago. My family's been farming since the early 1800s, but that was more of the produce end of farming. And I wanted to do something different. And bring something to the island that's not really here anymore. So I got into the dairy end.
All right. Well, if any of our classes have any questions, we can spend the last few minutes of the tours just getting to know our farmer here. If you guys have any questions about how he raises the animals, what type of products they make, how they market, who their audience is.
Right, you also do home delivery as well. We were talking about that earlier.
Yes, we have a program where it's like a CSA, but our members sign up for the month and we deliver to their house once a week. The families sign on to the website and they pick 3 dairy products, 2 meat products, and then they get a general box of fruits and vegetables every week delivered right to the home. And I also have a la carte where you can go on and just pick whatever you want. And then we also do farmers markets in New York City and currently doing one in Glen Cove.
Okay,
Do you have any other animals besides the goats, the chickens, and the cows?
Some pigs and a few sheep. And I think that's it.
Are you making any sheep's milk products with this?
No, the sheep are more just for show, for just for when people visit the farm to see.
Any other questions, guys? Yeah, we got more.
How long do the goats typically live for?
Again, I mean, the lifespan can be 10 plus years, 10 to 15, dependent on what they do. When they're in production, they're probably more along that 10 to 12, and then then they can. But if they're just as a pet, I've seen them live to be 14, 15 years old.
So I mean, that's about the same average.
Yeah.
So we have a question here about the soap that you mentioned here. How do you make soap using goat milk?
Oh, you got me on that one. My cousin makes the soap, and I see loose goats.
So the soap, it's made by combining, different types of oil, and the milk is actually just another one of those ingredients that, as Chrissy mentioned before, has a lot of health benefits, is very healthy for our skin, and it's just included in the regular process of soap making. Do the cows or the goats have names?
Goats loose out back.
I think our farmer went to go catch some loose goats there.
We got some goats loose out back. But that's okay. What was it? Do they have names? Well, when they're little, they have names, and then there's so many. A couple kind of become the household favorites, and they stick. But as they get older, it becomes more of a number, basically.
Are the goats and the cows, do they live together or are they kept separately?
They're separate, but they're next to each other.
All right. And one last question here. Which cheese is your best seller?
Probably the goat chev is probably the best seller. Or the Feta.
All right. Excellent. Well, I think some of our classes, some of them are moving on to lunch or some other activities now. But thank you to all of our classes that came out today. And thank you to Goodale Farms for hosting us for our virtual field trip today. I know that a lot of our classes were very engaged, as we can see by the questions that they're asking here. And I hope that many of them will come and visit your farm someday.
You're more than welcome. We enjoy having you anytime.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys.